Thank you, panelists. And now moving on to our next session, and we are going to discuss the current reality of gaming in India, the size, challenges, and opportunities. We have with us Anurag Khurana, co-founder and CEO, Newgen Gaming, Wadakethalakal, Senior Vice President, Corporate Development and Investor Relations, MPL, Manav, Sethi, Chief Marketing Officer, Octro, Shivanandan, Pare, Chief Executive Officer, Gaussian Networks, Sumant, Narayanan, Head of Client Engagement, Akamai, India, Varun, Ganjoo, Co-founder and Marketing Director, Baazi Games, and the session will be moderated by Bijoya Ghosh, Founder and CEO, Adgully Network. Over to you all.
Thank you, Preeti, for the introduction. The spectacular growth of the gaming industry, especially over the last few years, has generated a lot of interest and investment. It focuses on the current reality of gaming industry in India, and it will gauge the size, challenges, and opportunities. I have with me an eminent gathering of panelists for the discussion ahead who have individually contributed tremendously to grow the gaming sector in the country. So gaming is not a recent phenomena in India. We have seen this industry grow from the stage of Pac-Man to PUBG and beyond, from very primitive style to highly sophisticated CGI and augmented reality enriched multiplayer platforms. My question to each one of you is, how do you view the progression of online gaming sector in India? Sidharth, would you like to go first on this?
Yeah, sure. So, online gaming, what came from the, the DOMs and the parlors, where video game parlors, where it was it's become mainstream now. Everyone, the way to look at it is, everyone who has a smartphone, there is a very high likelihood that almost everyone is a gamer, because if you're playing Candy Crush on your phone, you're a gamer. If you're playing Battleground India on your phone or Call of Duty Mobile, you're a gamer. So the definition of gamer is very, very wide, and gaming has become mainstream in India. And like it happens in any other industry, gaming has now started getting verticalized. So, there is, if you're playing Candy Crush, you're a casual gamer. If you're playing a Call of Duty Mobile or a Battlegrounds India, you have aspirations to be a professional gamer and you come in the category of esports. If you're participating in fantasy games, you're a gamer, but you're a part of the whole fantasy game segment. If you want to make a quick buck and try your luck in doing so, you are a real money gamer. So those are some verticalizations that are coming, but India is growing very rapidly. We have crossed about $1 billion in overall gaming revenue, and that's very heartening for a country. But as we progress along, I'll share more. But in my mind, gaming has become mainstream. Digitization has helped. It has become more sophisticated. The payment architecture, all the payment gateways have helped a lot. So on the back of, bigger, better, cheaper smartphones, cheaper internet, overall economy, the digital economy getting a boost in the last 1.5 years, gaming is now mainstream.
Joe, would you like to go?
Sure. Yeah, look, I would really agree with a lot of Sidharth's points, right? I think gaming is truly mainstream. I think gaming is it's the most kind of natural thing to do almost on a smartphone, especially when you're looking to kill a little bit of time, which is why you've seen casual games explode in India in particular, as more and more people get access to the phones. I think the other nuance that's really interesting for gaming right now is that the quality of the smartphones that are coming out at such a low price point are really, really, really compelling. So you have smartphones today that are, let's say sub a few $1,000s, and they have the processing power of a PlayStation 2, right? And that is incredible, right? You have now the ability to play really high fidelity on really, really cheap devices on internet that I think is really trending towards being free, essentially, high quality internet that's free. And the intersection of all those three things, I think, is like manna from heaven for gaming, right? And I think that's why gaming is exploding in many markets, but in particular in mobile-led markets like India.
Anurag, would you want to go after this?
Yes, please. So I'll start with my initial journey. I got into gaming back in late 90s. And during those days, there was no social media, as the whole discovery for our games was happening on Reliance Network, which was #2 at that time. But during my Riot Games days, it was majority influencers and social media alongside with esports events and content independent of the game, like music videos and shows, which was getting the games being noticed. And secondly, the internet penetration, as it's also said, that internet penetration and affordable smartphone devices are dissolving the boundaries, and online gaming is being looked as a mode of social interaction. According to me, it's the new social media right now. And now with the online culture, everyone has lots to choose from in terms of the games and the offerings related to it, and are not restricted only to few choices, indicating that the growth and the potential of the industry.
Manav, you've moved from the OTT sector into this. So what's your point of view? How would you like to view this?
Sure. So I think globally, gaming is already bigger than movies and music combined. That is one, right? If you look at what Reed Hastings said, that, after the biggest competition for them as sleep, the next one that he thinks is a game, and that game could be, Fortnite, right? So I think gaming is already acquiring or has acquired the significant chunk of leisure hours, at least in the US, right? If you look at where people want to invest their time, either in the shows or cable and satellite or sitcoms or offline entertainment, I believe that we are at the cusp of growth, which is at the intersection of both sports as well as entertainment. And what we have seen is only tip of the iceberg.
Okay. Varun, what's your point of view on this?
So, like Manav mentioned, I think the first point is that, how gaming is sort of a subset of entertainment, right? Where people are now willing to move from the core entertainment segments to exploring gaming as a mode of entertainment, right? And the second point is, like you mentioned initially, that, we go back to the days of Pac-Man and Mario's, right? But I feel that it even goes beyond. So Indians, I feel, are gamers at heart, right? So, I mean, all of us, I'm sure, would have explored or played card games with our peers back then, street games, cricket, etc. So I feel that just this mobile culture has kind of made it possible to revive that, and bring out that gamer in you, right? So it has increased the gameplay on mobiles now. An example of this was recently I was talking to someone who said that, his father wanted to switch over his mobile phone, and the only reluctance he had is that he was at some 100+ levels on Candy Crush, and if he changed his phone, he was under the impression that he's going to lose that. So that is the kind of level of involvement gaming has gotten people into, and different age groups, right? So I think, yes, the culture has picked up a lot, and there's a lot to grow in the in future too.
Okay, Shivanandan.
Am I audible?
Yeah, now. Yeah.
Hi. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be in this panel in the midst of such august audience. Pardon, is there a noise behind?
Yes, little bit. No, that's fine now.
Yeah. So, and then coming last, it becomes really challenging because everybody has covered. I would rather say, I think pandemic showed us that we are just scratching the tip of the iceberg as far as this industry is concerned. To me, it is where e-commerce was in 2012, 2013. I guess the growth potential or the market, what we are looking at is at least 10-fold from here in another 7 years, the online gaming market as such. That's how I would like to sum it up.
Sumant, you're from a different sector, but you work very closely with this gaming sector. What's your point of view?
Sure, Joe. Again, thanks for having me on this panel. Look, I think I think at Akamai, we have the privilege of actually working with, across several industries. And I think especially, to Shivan's point, especially when the pandemic hit, one of the things that we saw is obviously there were several industries that were negatively impacted, the likes of travel and hospitality. But also there were other industries that obviously benefited from this in some sense, which is the likes of OTT, the short form, videos, and obviously gaming. On our platform, historically we've had events like, sporting events like cricket or election results, which really drive a lot of traffic on our platform. But now today, we're actually seeing new game launches coincide with actually peaks on our traffic platform. So that clearly tells you that a lot has actually changed from how it used to be. And even if you look at any of the other business metrics, right, in terms of the number of users or watch time, or just the investments, clearly tells you that there has been a significant shift ever since pandemic. And I think lastly, the last one I'll make is, especially with all that interest around game streaming. And if you look at it year over year, like last year, we did about 17 million viewership, almost doubling year over year. And I wouldn't be surprised that over the next 3-4 years, if we see that the large peak concurrent events, which are currently being driven by sports like cricket, would be in the future be driven by esports tournaments and Premier Leagues. So overall, very excited about where it is, and I think as Shivanandan put, I think we're just at the beginning.
Okay. Now that we've kind of set the tone as to how the online gaming industry is progressing, we all know that pandemic has brought out massive changes in the economy, but gaming as a sector saw huge gains during this period. So according to you, how did the pandemic prove to be an inflection point for this industry? Joe, would you like to go first on this?
Sure. So just to recap, you mean how did the pandemic drive an inflection point in the industry? That was the question, right?
Yes.
So I think what the pandemic did was it sent a lot of people to home, right? And people were bored and they had a lot of time on their hands and they needed things to do. And so I think it put gaming into the hands of many more people faster than it would have otherwise, if that makes sense, right? Because now people really just needed something to do, and so they fell into gaming. And so my view is that what the pandemic did was it actually brought us closer to the future, and I think it's done this in a range of different industries, but in gaming in particular, it essentially accelerated the future, probably 2 to 3 years with respect to gaming adoption and comfort around gaming and familiarizing and normalizing gaming, right? So that is, that's my view, right? I think that is really what the pandemic did. If I may add just one thing to that, I think the other thing is that, a lot of people thought that the increase in gaming adoption and gaming usage would dip a lot post-pandemic. Yeah. And I think the fact that, at least at MPL, we've seen a lot of the gaming behaviors become very, very resilient. And I know from talking to other game developers and other folks in the gaming industry that they've seen the same thing. And so I really don't think it is a flash in the pan. I really do feel like, people are now just much more open to gaming and it's become a lot more normalized as a result.
Sidharth, would you like to go second? You're not audible. Sir, you're not audible.
Yeah, hi. I would give you an anecdote. So, I can quote tons of numbers, and from EY to KPMG to all sorts of people have, taken out various reports on gaming, esports, how it has grown. And we can all quote the numbers, we can see the numbers, but as anecdotal evidence, the journey that gaming has come through is pre-COVID. Kids would be playing games, they would be at home for a finite period of time, and they would be on their mobile or on their PC, and the parents were constantly, what are you doing? Why are you sitting and playing a game? Why are you wasting your life away? Till the time the lockdown happened, and now everyone was at home all of a sudden, especially when it happened for the first time last year. Everyone is at home, and the parents are still grumbling a little that you are sitting at home, but they were still a little okay about it because the kids have nothing better to do. You're sitting at home, you're playing game. 2, they started getting curious about it. What is this game? What are you playing? What happens? Tell us about it. 2, families actually got together and started playing games. So from very casual games like Ludo and Tambola, which families across the country and across the world were playing, in the evenings or on weekends, because all day they were doing what they were doing at home, to even more serious games, fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, fathers and daughters, they started playing each other. Now, post the pandemic world, once, our daily lives come back to some kind of a normalcy, start going to work, start going to college, will you have a certain reduction in those gaming hours? The answer is yes, because there are only finite 24 hours in a day. But I think the mindset change has happened. The resistance that parents had constantly, that, you are wasting your time away sitting in front of a screen constantly, their own aversion to sitting in front of a screen changed. So whether it was, where Manav comes from, the whole OTT industry, or it was the gaming industry, the mindset change happened. All of a sudden it became, the right thing to do. And that's why if you saw, even WHO ran this campaign, Play a Part Together. So all these years, WHO was in vehement opposition saying gaming causes all sorts of mental imbalance. And now here WHO was putting out this campaign, Play a Part Together, to maintain your sanity, play gaming. So will there be a reduction in the overall hours? Yes, because the peak was, a lot. But has the sustainability of gaming, has that been established? Yes. Have we crossed that critical inflection point where the growth is going to be faster? Yes. Has the pandemic accelerated the whole gaming industry growth overall by 2 to 3 years? The answer is yes. So I think sustainability, mindset, those are the key takeaways for me.
Okay. You actually showed me the mirror. I was just thinking, oh, this is what I tell my kid. So how would you like to respond to this?
So I think unambiguously, this entire lockdown or last 12 months have brought at least 6 to 8 quarters of growth forward, right? What the entire industry in the country was waiting to achieve got actually much more earlier, right? But I think that also got the challenge in, as Sid was saying, that a lot of first-time gamers came into the fray. So it was incumbent on the platforms to see how to hold them, how to convert them into loyal players, how to handhold, onboard them. And I think that's where a lot of investment in the CRM platforms, tech, data sciences, data engineering played a very important role for all those who had done that, pre-lockdown times, right? I think what Sid also mentioned, correctly, is that, gaming is a very personalized form of consumption, the way OTT is, right? I mean, when I'm playing my game, whether my kid is playing her Among Us or whether I am playing my poker, I don't want anyone, interjecting in that time, right? And because of that, it's a very, very behavior forming phenomenon, right? And that's what we have witnessed, and that's what our data also tells us. And I think what Joe was also saying, right, on games like Tambola, we saw families across time zones, across geographies, latching on to Tambola as a family form of engagement. And fortunately, what we had introduced on few of our games was a private, consumption experience. You can actually set up a private table in poker. You can set up a private Tambola game. And what we did was we also sort of layered it with voice chat, right? So while you are away, right, it gave you a meaningful form of an option, which now is emerging as a scalable leisure option where people across the time zones and across the geo could also connect. Not only this, right? I've had cases where one of the largest insurer company in the country used Tambola as an employee engagement activity, right? That how is it that you can sort of connect them all together, not only with the employees, but beyond employees with their families as well. So I think gaming to that extent has become a very, very, or has proven to be scalable leisure options on the other side of the COVID. And I can only see it growing leaps and bounds from here, where it will sort of subsume all the other forms of entertainment in it. And that's how you sort of hear this word called metaverse, right?
Sumant, how would you like to respond to this?
So, Bijoya, I mean, I briefly touched upon some of the things that we saw on our platform in terms of how, some of the peaks are being driven now by new gaming launches, right? Clearly talks about the mass traction that we're seeing across the board. Look, and I agree with, with what we've actually just heard so far on the panel. I think the only other additional thing I would add to that is, I mean, it's not a tier 1 phenomenon anymore, right? Like we're seeing it across the board, like tier 2, tier 3, and beyond cities as well. So that we see that kind of attraction across the board when we look at even our own platform stats. So that's probably what I'll just add to what the panel has already stated.
Okay. So my question to Shivanandan and Varun is, do you think, has it given the right push and been able to bring critical mass to the online gaming platforms? Shivanandan, would you like to go first on that? Do you think it's given the right push and been able to bring the critical mass to the online gaming platforms?
Yeah, I think while most of the points being covered here has been from the consumer side, which is absolutely right from a consumer traction perspective, across board we have seen jump in traction, right? One of the best thing which has happened to this industry with pandemic led influx is also its ability to attract good talent. I would rather say that, suddenly we see that the industry has become more and more acceptable from a talent perspective. The flip side of this whole visibility to this industry has been lack of regulatory framework has led to a lot of states looking at it from a very different angle as well, right? Now that's the flip side of it. So that's how I would sum up, because most of the consumer side of traction, my dear panelists have already covered it here, right?
Okay. Varun and Anurag, how would you like to respond to this?
Sure. So I think like the panelists have already covered it, but I would like to give credit to the entire industry, the gaming industry, because see, it's not that the gaming industry was not growing, right? There were these growth factors already there, driven by the internets and mobile penetrations, etc., right? But here came this opportunity that, where people could come and you could drive that growth at a faster pace, right? So the industry was quick to get these social elements included, right? Like one of the panelists mentioned that, people used to play with their peers, with their families across ages, right? So to be able to offer those set of things when people needed it, right? And then, of course, the scalability. It takes a lot of tech efforts to generate a scalable model wherein tons of people are concurrently playing on such gaming platforms, right? So I think, yes, all of these efforts have reaped the benefits for the industry as a whole. And I think there are tons of reports which suggest that, millions of people, got onto these games in such a short span of that 2 to 3 months, right? And that growth, I think, is going to sustain for a long time. So yes, if you ask me, has it gotten in a critical mass? It for sure has.
Okay. Anurag?
Yeah. So according to me, the pandemic has definitely proven to be a catalyst for online gaming. Like giving you a small example, like my 8-year-old kid, he was a gamer when he was just 5, but his mother was after his life, why are you wasting your time? Right now, she also encourages, okay, if you have nothing to do, go play games. To the extent she, being a non-gamer, has become a gamer, of course, playing Ludo, etc. But as Sid said, she's a gamer in our books. So I think that is what the whole scenario has helped us. And I think with the things going back to normal, as Sid just mentioned earlier also, there'll be some drop off, but that resistance will not be there in parents' minds if they are letting kids play right now.
Okay. So as you all shared, and I think we'll establish it during our other question that we asked. So everyone talks about immense scope and potential of gaming, but could you tell us how much is the industry valued at? Where are we at this point in 2021? Where were we? I mean, where are we on 2021? Where were we last year? Sidharth, would you like to go first on this?
You're talking about the gaming industry?
Yes, I'm talking about the gaming industry.
See, so if you look at various reports, the way the gaming industry, and let me just pull up those numbers. I have those numbers here. So if you look up the report that was put out by KPMG a couple of months back, that puts the gaming industry in FY21 at about 136 billion rupees, out of which casual gaming is the biggest segment, which is about 60 billion. And real money gaming is almost another 50 billion. So those are the two biggest segments in terms of what that report talks about. And the gaming industry, you have seen that in 2020 in FY20 as well, where overall the media and entertainment industry actually degrew, and that has happened very, very rarely. The last time it happened was the 2008 crash, when the whole world order crashed. So the industry degrew, media and entertainment, but gaming and online digital were the only two industries that actually grew, and they grew at a 25-30% CAGR. So that growth which is being projected in the next few years to come as well. So that's overall gaming as an industry. If you look at within gaming, the segment that we look at Nodwin, or we are part of, that's the esports segment. Now, depending which report you're again looking at, KPMG is a little more conservative, which says that esports industry was about 1.7 billion in 2021, and is going to grow to about 6 billion in 4 years. ENY is a little more optimistic or a little more aggressive, where they have pegged the esports industry at 2.5 billion in 2021, and they have projected it to grow fourfold in the next 4 years. So they are saying it's going to be 11 billion by FY25. So that's one way to look at the industry, which is the overall revenue size. If you just look at the gamers, the gamers are about 430 million gamers today, which in the next 4 years are projected to reach 700 million. If you ask me the rate at which we are growing, the rate at which smartphone penetration is growing, I expect that number to be higher than that. But that's the stated number where, various reports that you look at, you can see those numbers. The biggest growth which is coming as per most of these reports is in the esports gamers segment. So that segment was 80,000 last year. It's already 150,000 gamers today, but that's where they are saying the reports are putting the maximum growth. So they are saying we'll have about 1.5 million or 15 million in the year 2025. So that's kind of a 10-fold growth which is coming in the next 4 years. So that's how the industry is shaping up. But whichever way you look at it, it doesn't matter, because these are all futuristic reports, and all of us come from industries where we have seen these industry reports coming out from various bodies. The point is that no matter who looks at gaming is very, very bullish on gaming. Also, to give you another statistic about hours spent on online gaming per week, India is now India is ahead of the global average. So the global average is about 8.45 hours spent per week on online gaming. India is sitting at 8.61. And the only two countries which are ahead of India in terms of hours spent on gaming online every week are Vietnam and China. So we are ahead of, France, England, UK, US. We are ahead of all of these countries. And that's something which is, again, very, very promising as a country. Because like one of my panelists said, we are a gaming nation by, inherently we are a gaming nation. Just the field has changed from physical for the next generation. It's becoming, a PC or a mobile or a console. So that's my 2 bits on it.
Joe, how would you like to respond? How do you see the industry?
Look, I think on the growth trajectory, Sidharth just nailed it, right? I think he has all the metrics at the tip of his tongue. So I generally agree with pretty much everything he said, right? In terms of overall growth. We like to look at the Newzoo reports a lot. I think they're specifically for mobile games. It's we find them to be quite good, and I think they're pegging India overall at like a 2.3 billion opportunity as of 2020, and that kind of going to a 4 billion opportunity by 2024 in terms of revenue, right? So that's actually revenue to the game developers. And I think there's a lot of upside in that number, to be honest. I think that number could be even bigger. You know, it's very hard to actually track. None of these, by the way, none of these industry reports are right? They're all kind of guesses in the dark as to what is the right number. So you know, we at MPL, we think that's probably at the low end, and so we think there's an incredible upside. And that's all I really have to say about the numbers. I would say, you know, one of the things that I think is very interesting, which we're paying a lot of attention to, is financial inclusion broadly. Because I mean, to Sidharth's point, you know, people, when I talk to investors, you know, people are shocked when I say there's 400 million gamers in India, right? Literally, people don't believe it. You know, the number of people we have in this country is incredible. So people can't wrap their heads around it. But I think obviously for a game developer, ultimately it's about the number of people who can transact. And so what's really exciting is, and I think this is where India's done a fabulous job, is in cultivating the ecosystem to allow a lot of these fintech players to come into the market, enable people to transact online, start giving them access to credit. You know, for example, I think the biggest driver of game developer revenue is going to be access to credit, right? As more and more people have access to credit, every business is going to do well, and in particular digital businesses, because a lot of these businesses are providing that credit online, and I think we're going to really be big beneficiaries of that. So yeah, we're you know, we're very optimistic on the space, and we think, you know, to summarize, the things that are going on with respect to financial inclusion are going to be the biggest unlock for mobile gaming in particular.
Shivanandan and Varun, what would be your point of view in this?
Varun, you want to take it first? Last time I took.
Yeah.
Sure, sir. I think like the panelists have already given us a brief on what the numbers look like or are projected to be, right? But I can only add that, you know, maybe just revenue wise, looking at it would not be the best matrix, because, you know, India as a nation, we are not, you know, we wouldn't be at better average ticket sizes as compared to markets like, let's say, the US, right? But absolutely in terms of volume, we beat everyone. So like Joe mentioned, I think 400 million is a number which can amaze everyone, right? But there's another figure that is already there, which says that, you know, there are about 800 million people that consume sports already in the nation, right? So I think there's huge scope there, right? We've not even, we're just there at half of that mark, right? So there's enough audience already there to capture.
Okay. Shivanandan, would you like to go for
Yeah,
this?
The way I look at it is, you know, for the current generation, the younger generation, or you can call them millennials, or, you know, whatever generation they are, I mean, right? Would gaming be the choice of first choice to get entertained or to spend their time? I think yes. Compared to content, right? During our time, the only way to spend our time and get entertained was probably movie or television content, right? Anybody who is born post 1995 or 2000, what will be his or her default choice to spend time would invariably emerge as gaming, especially on the mobile side, with mobile as the access device, right? So now it's just a matter of projection. I mean, we have seen these numbers going wrong, as Joe mentioned, the whole projection numbers going wrong. Fundamentally, is there a behavioral shift? Yes, there is a behavioral shift. Then the sky is the limit for anybody to, you know, assess the potential. I would not be surprised if 2025 number of anywhere between 4 to 6 billion gets beaten by at least 40-50%, right? That's the kind of thing we are looking at. That's what we saw the moment access became accessible. Geo boosted the whole OTD, you know, consumption pattern, the content consumption. So pandemic is one trigger. we don't know what would happen next, right? So that's how I would say that, it's very hard to guess the number, but I would like to bet on the at least 40 to 50% more than whatever any of these reports have given. That's how I would put it. Yeah.
Based on what you just said, my next question is what needs to be done to get new audiences to sample the online gaming platform and retain the initial visitors?
Yeah,
Shivanandan, would you like to respond to this? And then I would like Anurag and Manav to respond.
Yeah, so see, I represent Ghosh Networks, which is predominantly into the RMG space, real money gaming space. So from our perspective, from my perspective, from the RMG industry, within the gaming industry, I would say regulatory clarity would be the biggest boost for this industry, if there is one which comes in, right? And that's one of the biggest expectation from us also, from the industry players, that this sword of uncertainty because of lack of regulatory framework is stopping investment, is stopping creation of value, creation of employment, you name it, right? So that's how I would put one single thing, if there is an ask from our side, would be that, right? I think markets will grow. Consumers will not stop playing. Consumers would find their way. They would continue to play. And this one particular thing, if it gets solved, I am pretty confident that this industry would be attracting investments, valuation, you name it, the way any other internet companies have, industry verticals have emerged over the last decade or so, right? Yeah.
Anurag?
Okay, let me answer your second question first.
Okay.
While a small percentage of the users might not be retained once we are back to the normal post-pandemic scenario, but a majority will stick to it as it's something new that they liked. Second point is that good content is always grips the users, which is what I'm seeing happening with new launches of the game, new game coming up. With life going back to the pre-pandemic routine, to retain new consumers, tweaks on content have to be made to keep audiences still engaged. Last point is that that localized payment options for the demographics, which have been the biggest hindrance, will now change introduction of multiple such payment options to keep them retained and also get more ARPU. Fortunate for me, I've been part of two organizations who have indirectly driven this whole online gaming phenomenon. One is Geo and second is Paytm, making payments enabled. So I think more such new mechanism would like to see to retain the initial visitors.
Okay. Manav, how would you like to respond to this?
So I think Octro is the only, Indian company which is featuring top 5, whether you pick App Any or Sensitar, right? If you look at player by revenues or top grossing app, Octro, Teen Pati, because of the casual, intervention that we have, right? We are right there. But from RMG standpoint, as Shiv rightly said, because we are also in RMG space, there's a dire need of harmonization of state and central laws, right? That how these two twins have to merge, right? These can't be divergent paths, right? For any, predictable capital to come into this as an industry. I think beyond that, what government needs to do is sort of enable this entire ecosystem, right? And I'll sort of take it, link it back to our earlier question on the growth, right? If you look at how China's tech industry actually evolved, right? The entire internet tech industry evolved because of gaming, right? Because the gaming revenue started to plow on acquisition and audiences, and that's how the entire ecosystem built, right? In India, it is not the case, right? Gaming is a late entrant for all the reasons that we have, discussed now. And also remember that India is also very unique for two reasons, right? Because A, we've not had any global IPs, right? Our kids don't grow up reading or consuming IPs which are made in India itself. That is one. Second, we have bypassed the console generation, right? So we've sort of leapfrogged rightly into mobile. When you look at through these prisms, you realize that there is lot of while we are the largest gamers after China on the planet, right? But we are still consuming in concentric circles. We are consuming local content, we are consuming global content. I mean, we've seen now kids not asking for Lego on their birthdays, but asking for Robux, right? Which is the cash on Roblox, right? I mean, that shift never existed earlier. If you look at the data for Among Us, right, they say that 3/4 of under 12 kids in US are consuming Roblox. That has never happened in the past, right? So if you look at on your peaking order of media consumption, gaming is the only category which has been outlier in terms of growth, right? So it needs all the right sort of ingredients for it to prosper. That can be, tax incentive, that can be, focus on IP creation. I mean, we have never had any studio making a game that can be taken to 200 countries, localized in 20 languages, right? And if you correlate it with how it has happened in the Western world, and that's what they do. I mean, we've seen the cases of a PUBG ban, where while the revenue contribution was very, very small, but the day India announced the ban, there was a significant erosion of shareholder capital from the public markets, right? So I think you have to look at it in these many contexts and see that, there is enough runway for all of us to grow.
We've just discussed some of the things that are plaguing the industry also during our course of the discussion. So, gaming industry is not devoid of certain roadblocks in its growth journey. So what are the big challenges that lie ahead of the industry at this point? Joe, would you like to go first on this?
Big challenges that lie ahead of the industry?
For the gaming industry, yes.
I think it was either Shivanandan or Manav who mentioned regulation.
Yes.
I think regulation is one of those things. I think the regulations need to be updated for digital realities and refreshed and just made very clear so that everyone knows what the rules are and we can kind of act accordingly. I think that's one gray area. I think that does need to be clarified, which will be a massive value unlock. I think another major challenge is ensuring that game developers keep the long-term interests of the user in mind. I would say is a macro challenge, which is it's more of a mindset issue and less about gaming. I would say you could apply this in any industry, but I think in gaming in particular, it's so easy to think short term and do things that are a bit, things that are probably not in the long-term interests of a customer, right? But maybe in short-term financial interests, and I think for this industry to really succeed in the long term, ultimately we have to make sure that we're treating the customer right, and that the customer is always protected. And I think that's that's sort of a game theoretic challenge, if you will, right? With so many different players. How do you ensure that everyone is aligned on that and everyone's always kind of working to protect the customer in the long run? I think that is probably the other thing that I spend a lot of time thinking about. And then the last part I would say is more of a mindset shift, and I think this speaks to something that we discussed earlier, where just getting out this idea that hey, gaming is bad. Or gaming is gonna, burn a hole in your brain, right? It's not a good use of your time. I mean, one of the biggest blessings I think that my parents gave me was as a child, they always encouraged me to game because they felt that me playing video games was, a good use of my time, that it actually could help develop the mind. And, I think there are many really interesting entrepreneurs, like even the founder of Shopify, Toby Lutka, talks about this a lot, how playing real-time strategy games growing up helped him become a great entrepreneur. I think that mindset shift, needs to happen. And I think as an industry, we can do a bit more on doing that and really promoting that, so that people look at gaming as something that really benefits society. Because I think, I really think it can, and it will.
Shivanandan and Varun, would you like to go after this?
No, I think people have covered.
Varun, would you like to respond?
Well, I think just to sum up, yes, I mean, all points are covered, whether it's the regulation and then the perception changes that need to be brought in. And yeah, pretty much the major factors that we face as a challenge in this industry.
Anurag, would you like to respond? Sidharth, would you like to go?
Yeah, so just adding to Joe, I was not that lucky. Yes, my parents allowed me to play games only because of the reason they said he's sitting at home. So that was the reason my parents allowed. But anyway, thanks to them, I was lucky enough to get into gaming industry back in '99. So yeah, it's courtesy them that I got into that. But I think one challenge for esports, which I think Sid will also agree with me, is basically perception that gaming is only for just spending your time, but it's not a viable career. I think that one thing we need to work, because the way we are working at Penta Esports is communicating a message that gaming is not bad if done in normal certain timing. So that is the whole thing. I think that once that perception change, more esports athletes would at least parents won't oppose their playing game as a profession. I think that is one thing which, whatever my other colleagues have said, I would like to add on that.
Okay. So that, would you consider nagging moms like me a challenge? And how do you address that?
So, while the challenge is the answer to that question is moderation. Because when we were growing up and we spent 8 hours or 10 hours on a Sunday outside playing cricket, or spent too much time watching television because India had seen liberalization, and all of a sudden MTV had come, and you could just see MTV day in day out and see music videos. We heard pretty much the same things as parents are telling their kids these days. So I think that it's not about gaming, it's about something that takes over your life, becomes addictive, everything else gets ignored. So I think moderation is the answer there. And there is no substitute to that. But just adding my 2 bits to the other question that you asked about, the challenges that this industry faces. I think one is from the demand side, one is from the supply side. From the demand side, if you look at what happened when PUBG got banned in India, you saw Tencent's market capital taking a huge hit. And everyone's answer was, oh, India is 25% install base of PUBG Mobile, and hence, the markets have taken a hit. But you had to dig a little deeper. While it was 25% on a volume standpoint, it was a 25% share. Revenue share, India was contributing less than 1% to PUBG Mobile's revenue globally. And it was the market potential, right? So it was not about we were paying and all of a sudden Indians had started paying and doing a lot of in-app purchases. But it was the potential. Over time, that will change. When so many people are playing, when they see value in what they are doing, esports is one of the contributors where, it becomes a viable career option. And if anything you're trying to build career in, master's theory kicks in, you have to spend, that many hours, you have to upgrade yourself, you have to spend money. So that was the potential, which essentially means from a publisher's standpoint, we will have to, India is a value-seeking consumer, right? So we'll have to give opportunities to the consumer whereby they can spend money. I also remember one of the panelists saying that, have we made a game which we can take to 200 countries? Well, the reason we haven't done so is because we haven't, as a nation, we haven't grown up playing games or being part of the, the kind of narrative that West has seen. It applies to animation. It applied to animation 20 years back. Some of the best animations were created by Indian studios, but they were not ideated by Indian studios. It applies to gaming now, but that will change. As more and more people are playing, they are growing up playing. That will change. So I think access to capital is going to be a one big differentiator, because you need to have big pockets. You need to have patience. You need to have a game which is globally appealing. India may not be the first market for you to make money in that game. You will have to take it outside and then bring it to India as the Indian consumer spends more. So that's on the demand side. I think we still have some time to go before the willingness to pay kicks in the way the industry wants it. I think on the supply side, and there is a lot of representation which is constantly made. There is inclusion required at the grassroots level. Why is cricket where cricket is today in India? I mean, sure, we are a cricket crazy country, and every other sport gets a stepmotherly treatment, and we have seen that at Olympics. While the athletes have made us exceptionally proud, and we can see we finally have a medal in hockey, and we just had a medal in women's hockey, and we just got a gold. But the fact remains, of a country of our size, we still have 7 medals. So other sports have to come in. And how does that happen? Grassroots level. Money has to go in, whether it's government grants, whether it's corporate support, which essentially means that esport also has to get recognized as a viable sport. It has to get recognized as an industry. I mean, Sri Lanka has done it. Let's forget China, US, UK, Germany. Sri Lanka has done it. So I think those are some of the steps where some government will come together, the industry will come together. We will have to make sure the consumer starts paying more and more. And then it becomes one thing leads to another. It's a domino effect. And, then there is an upward spiral. But, and that's why I said pandemic has helped speed some of those things up. So what would have happened as per our own estimates as part of the industry over the next 2 years has happened. But it's now for us to continue to build the momentum, continue to get some of the support that we need from the government. And I am never a big believer in fiscal benefits. I mean, tax breaks, sure, it will only take us so long. But it's the other benefits that government needs to provide. And of course, regulation, everyone has covered. You can't compare, you can't get marred in gambling and betting and say every gaming is that. I mean, there has to be a regulation, there has to be a very clear demarcation between the two.
I would like to get in Sumant now, I think. So Sumant, is a pointed question for you. So cyber attack traffic targeting the gaming industry grew more than any other industry during the pandemic. From your experience, what are some of the threats and vulnerabilities that gaming companies should take note of?
Sure. So look, I think in our experience, any sector that sees such an exponential growth also starts to attract a lot of bad actors as well. And I guess that's exactly probably what we saw last year, where gaming was the most targeted vertical from our perspective. And I think I'll probably break it down into top 2 or 3 categories, right? And I think the first one is really just the player experience. And I think Manav was actually referring to that. Like as a gamer, you don't want anything to disrupt your playing experience. And I think attackers completely understand that. And which is why they essentially throw a volumetric attack at you, a DDoS attack at you, to essentially take your infrastructure offline. And even if it doesn't take you offline, at a bare minimum, it'll just slow down the gaming experience, right? And like, in fact, when you look at the stats, like last year alone, just 45% of the total DDoS attacks that we saw on the platform was purely targeted at the gaming sector. So that's a big one. The next one is really, just data theft, in terms of trying to just get sensitive personal user information. And this is attacks that are targeted at your apps and APIs. And the reason, again, I mean, when you look at the numbers, we're again seeing almost like 300% increase year over year, even on these kind of attacks. And partly the reason is, as most gaming companies, they're under constant pressure to release new features, in like record time. And that can actually put a lot of pressure, especially when it comes to, hardening your security posture. And attackers like this, because the moment they can, they're able to actually find that vulnerability, then hopefully they will actually get access to that personal information. So that's 2. And the last one is really what we call as account takeovers, which is predominantly through a lot of credential abuse that we see. Again, very staggering numbers. You see almost like 200% increase year over year, just as far as credential abuse attacks are concerned. And again, the reason is very simple, right? Like, I mean, if you look at it as, let's say we subscribe to 10 or 20 digital properties, right? And chances are that we're likely to repurpose our username or passwords. So all it really takes is for one of those entities to be breached. And the moment that happens, then any attacker can essentially take those user credentials and password credentials and try and see, hey, if they find a hit. And if they find a hit, then they can essentially take over the account. So those are like the top 2 or 3, trends that we see, top 2 or 3 attacks that we see in the gaming sector. I think I'll just close by saying that also the reason why this has become very lucrative is just the economics, right? The economics of launching an attack is just like far cheaper than the upside. And especially given the kind of traction that we saw with gaming last year, it is definitely worth the effort. And I would say this is just the beginning, and we'll hopefully see a lot more as we go through the year and forward.
My next question also to you is, so how will Akamai help find solutions facing the gaming sector?
Sure. So look, I mean, there are a lot of innovations, a lot of investments, a lot is actually changing in the gaming world. But I think the two things that will always be important to any like gamer is one is just the end user experience, and two is like trust/security. Like that, and it doesn't matter as far as the gamer is concerned. It doesn't really matter whether the game is being published by a new startup or if it's actually being published by a mid-sized company or like a well-established large company, right? As a gamer, I expect these two things to be taken care of. And again, this is irrespective of where the gamer is coming from. It could be a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. It doesn't really matter. And that's where at least at Akamai, what we're trying to do is we're trying to, in some sense, almost level the playing field. So irrespective of whether you're a big company or a small startup, like we are, in fact, also have a gaming acceleration project that we've just launched even for startups, where they can essentially deliver the same kind of experience that a large company or a well-established gaming company can launch as well. That's one, as far as the now is concerned. And just looking at future, even things like new technologies like cloud gaming. Now, I know it has not picked up yet in India, and it has dependencies on things like big rollout of 5G. But it seems very applicable for a country like India, which has such a huge device disparity, and also the fact that you don't really need a high-end device to play a high-end game. So there's a lot of potential there. And that's where, again, we're making investments ahead of time to try and see how we can actually help facilitate new technologies like cloud gaming. So yeah, I mean, look, I think at Akamai, as I said, it doesn't really matter the size of the company or the fact that it's about now or the future. We're trying to plan for the future. Hopefully that addresses your question, Bijoya.
Okay. We've almost come to the end of our discussion. So my last question to all of you all. The gaming industry has reached a particular stage in its growth journey. What are the future prospects of the gaming industry? Shivanandan, would you like to go first? And then Varun. Shivanandan?
Yeah. So for any industry to have a prominent say within the economy, there are roughly four things or four pillars on which it would get evaluated, right? Basically, first one, if I were to look at what is the kind of wealth creation opportunity does an industry give? Now, wealth creation opportunity could be purely for the founders or the shareholders. It could also get translated into what's the kind of employment potential and what kind of people can it absorb, right? Look at this industry. This industry is extremely highly, very, very driven from a data point of view. It's tech driven. It's moving towards a direction where probably we will see at scale personalization or customization, right? And what does these need? These need very high-end data or engineering talent. From that particular aspect, it gets the tick in the box that this is the industry which can generate or attract talent, world-class talent from anywhere from the world to this particular industry, right? The kind of scale which the country offers from a pure consumer traction perspective is, I think, can be paralleled only by China to some extent, right? So that's one element, right? The second thing is coming back from the investment point of view, right? Can this industry, given the right regulatory framework, attract great amount of investment? Yes, it is, because if you really look at what grew e-commerce here, apart from the competition from Amazon, it was the funding which the other three players got: Snapdeal, Paytm, and Flipkart, right? So does this industry have that potential to attract investment to the tune of billions of dollars? Yes, it has, because the kind of scale which it can attract is similar to e-commerce. It's on mobile. It can be consumed by everybody, right? The third thing is in terms of what does it offer to the exchequer of any country, right? From a tax perspective, both direct and indirect, right? Look at the potential. If everybody is talking about 6 billion If the consensus is in next 4 years, $6 billion market, at the rate, at whatever rate, we all would like it to go down, both the GST and the tax here. But yes, whatever is the rate, the math is out, right? It is going to add to the exchequer of the country, right? From a pure consumer perspective, is it a reversible trend from a consumer point of view? No, I and you would like to spend our time playing. It could be, the games could be different, right? So from all these four aspects, it is, I mean, it's nobody's guess. That's the future, right? Yeah, that's how I would sum it up.
Okay. Varun and Anurag?
Well, I think Shiv has perfectly put the pointers out, and I feel that if all the challenges that we have spoken about and all the prospects that we have at hand, I think we can reach a stage where consumers feel comfortable playing the game as well as choosing it as a career option. And once we reach that stage, I think we're there.
Okay. We have come a long way. When I started my career more than 2 decades ago, back in gaming, it was still absolute niche. However, the scenario is drastically different now. A lot of people know about how to play a game, or they know someone who's playing. Going ahead, I see this space only picking up, and more amazing stuff coming out of India. And I think, I don't know when, but we should be there on the global map.
Okay. Manav?
So I think, right, from a gaming standpoint, while we have already acquired significant share of time spent, I think we would be very happy to see a path to share of wallet also. And when I say that, I'm saying not only from the consumer standpoint, but also from the brands and from the media standpoint as well, right? The conventional wisdom is that wherever the eyeballs are, the money chases the eyeballs. I think we are at a stage right now where we have eyeballs. I think the monetization has to follow, which is of course the sum total of regulation, IP build up, experiences build up, investment in tech, data sciences, and scale, as our friend from Akamai said. So yeah, I think we have all the right ingredients. We just have to sort of make the right recipe for growth.
Joe, how would you like to respond to this?
Well, look, I think everything's been covered, right? I would just reiterate that I really believe that we are in the very early days of gaming as an industry. I think it is the native media format of the youth. So it is the default media format of children today. And as a result, if you believe that their media habits aren't going to change, and if you're optimistic about the future and you feel like our children should be earning more on average than us, then I think the math is very clear, right? I think as it stands today, it's already the second largest sector in media, and I think there's 100x growth ahead of this globally as an industry. So I think it's incredibly exciting. I think we're in the very, 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 very early days of it all.
Sidharth?
So, I'll add the flavor to esports. My colleagues have spoken about gaming. So if you look at esports, India as a country, if you look at overall the entire age bracket, we are still behind watching traditional esports, as in the time we spend per hour per week on watching esports versus watching traditional sports, be it on television or digital medium. But if you start slicing it, and if you see the 18 to 25-year-old age group or 26 to 35-year-old age group, they're already spending more time watching esports events, watching other people play games online, than they are on watching cricket and football on television or on Disney Hotstar or Sony Live or wherever they're watching it, right? If I were to just extrapolate this trend, the future is clearly esports. It's interactive. It's the viewable entertainment of tomorrow. And I would go to the extent of saying that esport is going to give cricket run for its money. in the years to come in India. Kabaddi hasn't done it, hockey hasn't done it, but I think esports has the potential to do it because the youngsters only want to watch esports. They're not interested in cricket or football. Sure, they would watch their friends play FIFA online, not really actual footballers playing on the field as much.
Sumant, you have a point of view here. Would you like to go?
Look, I completely agree with what Sidharth just said, right? I think so. At Akamai, for example, we delivered one of the largest cricketing events where the peak concurrency was in excess of 25 million. Just basis the numbers that we discussed, like yeah, we can easily surpass that. And I think especially a game like esports is actually best positioned to break that. Look, I'll just close by saying that, if we had this discussion 2 years ago, we would still be talking about the promise of it, but the numbers would have been very, very different. 2 years from then, the promise is so much more. And as I completely concur with everyone on the panel who said, literally, we are at the start. And really hoping that technology partners like Akamai are there to actually help support and scale and secure this online sporting business as it goes along.
Thank you, everyone. We end this panel today, and I look forward to partner with you all to make this ecosystem bigger going forward.
Thank you so much, Bijoya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anurag. Thank you, Varun.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
Shivanandan. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Manav. Thank you.
Thank you to all the panelists for that very insightful session.